friends. I'm Jeffrey Rosen, President and CEO of the National Constitution Center, and welcome to We the People, a weekly show of constitutional debate. The National Constitution Center is a nonpartisan nonprofit chartered by Congress to increase awareness and understanding of the Constitution among the American people. This week, I had the great honor of awarding the 2024 Liberty Medal to Ken Burns on behalf of the NCC. I've had the privilege of participating in a decade of Liberty Medal ceremonies. This was one for the ages. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the National Constitution Center. It is so meaningful to award the 2024 Liberty Medal to Ken Burns. Friends, let's begin, as always, by feeling the electricity of American history that unfolded on this sacred ground. Please gaze at the words of the First Amendment that are shining in front of you. And now, please turn your gaze to Independence Hall, where the Declaration and the Constitution were drafted. Think about the human stories that gave rise to the big ideas, the American ideas, reflected in those documents: liberty, equality, and democracy. For most Americans, the best way of learning about the human stories behind the American idea in the years leading up to America's 250th birthday will be Ken Burns' new series on the American Revolution. It's a riveting 12-part series. I've had the privilege of screening it. It brings to life stories of the Revolution as only Ken Burns can, by combining quotations from primary texts, personal narratives by revolutionary soldiers, Native Americans, and enslaved people, and commentary from leading historians, as well as unforgettable images. Like all of Ken's work, it teaches us that the fight for freedom is full of contingency and complexity, and always dependent on the courage, self-discipline, and virtuous choices of individuals. In college, I had a great English professor, Walter Jackson Bate. He was an inspiring humanist and a biographer of Samuel Johnson and John Keats. And Professor Bate pointed out that in every age, there's a different popular media technology that's the main platform for distributing great art, including the art of narrative storytelling about history. In the age of Shakespeare, it was the theater, and thousands flocked to the globe to learn about Henry IV, V, and VI, from Shakespeare's multi-part history plays. In the age of Dickens, it was the serialized novel, and thousands flocked to the docks of New York to get the latest installment of The Old Curiosity Shop and to find out what happened to Little Nell. In the age of Spielberg, it was the Hollywood movie, and millions turned to Schindler's List to understand the human tragedy of the Holocaust. Ever since the late 20th century, we've lived in the age of television, and millions turned to Ken Burns' documentaries to learn about the human triumphs and tragedies at the heart of American history. We are, in short, living in the age of Ken Burns. For Ken Burns, the story of America, like the story of each individual, is ultimately a spiritual quest to become more perfect. For the past few years, I've had the privilege of being part of an email list with Ken. Every morning, the folks on the list receive a snippet of wisdom from the great philosophers of history, compiled by Leo Tolstoy in his Calendar of Wisdom. Every day, Ken responds within minutes of receiving the daily selection. Let me share with you now some of the recent daily selections and Ken's responses over the past few days. September 20th, All good things can be achieved only with effort. That's from the Dhammapada. Ken's response: choose the path of most resistance. It is training for the most important work, overcoming the idleness of ordinary existence, offering a chance to escape the specific gravity of that which keeps us down. Discipline and sacrifice are the virtues which allow conditions for real progress to occur. Take the stairs. September 21st. Work toward the purification of your thoughts. Without bad thoughts, you will be incapable of bad deeds. Confucius. Ken's response, again within minutes. Bad thoughts, the precursor of bad actions, are like flies around a horse's head. We need to learn the method whereby a shake of the head or a whisk of the tail, and they are dispersed. Rather than an automatic, mindless gesture, which the horse employs, we must cultivate an intentional action to dispel those thoughts which would, without this rigorous attention, take root. And just this morning, September 24th, the selection was Plutarch on vegetarianism. This is the selection, actually, that briefly inspired Ben Franklin to become a vegetarian until he smelled cod off the coast of Cape Cod, and he gave it up. But this is Plutarch. What nature or struggles for existence or kind of madness forces you to shed blood with your hands in order to eat animals? And Ken's response, again 10 minutes later at 6:33 a.m. this morning: reasonable people may disagree. Many Native American people used every part of the buffalo for their subsistence, material and nutritional, and in return for killing it, revered it, centering their spiritual rituals around the animal that sustained them. Reciprocity incarnate. That represents only the past few days of the spiritual wisdom of this great prophet and great historian and great teacher. Imagine learning from Ken every day over the past few years. And as you can see, Ken's responses reflect his daily, hourly quest for self-discipline, self-government, and self-improvement. It's a quest he's on every day of the year, year after year, decade after decade, always striving to become deeper, wiser, more self-mastered, more empathetic, more tuned in, more present, more perfect. Like the great sages with whom he's in daily conversation, Ken recognizes that happiness is something to be pursued, but never finally or ultimately obtained. That's because the pursuit of happiness, as he puts it so perfectly, is a quest for lifelong learning, and every day is an opportunity to learn more. For Ken, the quest to become more perfect through lifelong learning is not only a personal quest, but a civic responsibility, a civic duty. That's the central lesson of all of his films. Unless citizens take the time to learn about history, we risk repeating its errors and losing our liberties to dictators or mobs. In telling the story of America through the personal stories of those who struggled to realize the American idea, he emphasizes the complexity of the daily quest for personal and political self-government. There are setbacks and there are failures and no guarantee of success. But in his unforgettable accounts of all the inflection points of American history, the American Revolution, Ben Franklin, the Civil War, the New Deal and the Roosevelts, LBJ and the Great Society, the arc of justice bends upward, and the quest to become more perfect continues. The National Constitution Center's sacred mission is to inspire Americans to learn about history so they can become more perfect and keep the republic. In his life and in his work, Ken Burns, the storyteller of America, has done more to advance that mission than any other American. That's why it's such a tremendous and unique honor for the National Constitution Center to award the 2024 Liberty Medal to Ken Burns. To learn more about him, we are so fortunate to be joined by the co-director of the American Revolution, Ken's longtime collaborator at Florentine Films, Sarah Botstein. Sarah has produced some of the most popular and acclaimed documentaries on PBS. Working with Ken Burns and Lynn Novick, she's worked on jazz, prohibition, the Vietnam War, College Behind Bars. She also co-directed the U.S. and the Holocaust. Sarah will tell us more about what it's like to work with Ken. Please welcome Sarah Botstein.
This is really crazy. I have worked for Ken for almost 30 years, so I'm just going to take a second to take this all in. Good evening. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you to everyone at the National Constitution Center. This is a really wonderful occasion in a really special place, and it's an honor to be here. The work that the National Constitution Center does is so important now more than ever, and we look forward at Florentine Films to working with everyone here on outreach and education for our upcoming series on the American Revolution, which Ken and Jeff are going to talk about more this evening. How fitting it is, though, to be here in Philadelphia, in this incredible room, in this magnificent and historic city, to celebrate Ken, an accomplished filmmaker, colleague and mentor, a terrific father, a wonderful boss, and probably my best friend. When Jeff asked me if I would speak, he said he wanted audience to get a sense of Ken the person and also talk a little bit about his work. It's fairly obvious, but Ken is really brilliant and very thoughtful. He's also really funny, and he has an infectious sense of humor. His favorite jokes derive from puns and wordplay. He's a crossword puzzle fanatic and does it every day without fail after the Tolstoy trio, correct? Yes, okay, that's the order. He's a really good dancer, and he loves the Beatles. His first job was in a record store, and he has an incredibly encyclopedic knowledge of all kinds of music. He's detail-oriented and exacting. He has a really unique ability to get down in the weeds with us and then lift up and find the larger meaning in almost anything. He listens, he's open to new ideas, and he loves to find new ways of seeing. He studies philosophy and loves poetry. He hates lying. He is never late. And when I say he's never late, what I also mean is that he is always early. We sometimes have to fib on our call sheets to say something will start much later than it will because we know he's going to be waiting for us, even if it's pitch dark in the middle of the night and we have a dawn shoot, or we're all going to sleep in the airport for a morning flight. He's obsessive about directions and could work for Rand McNally. If you go somewhere with him once, he can get there again. If you go in a hot air balloon and fall down on the ground, he will get up and find true north. He loves to walk. And I don't mean get in your 10,000 steps a day. He usually does that before lunch. He will pace around on endless phone calls and hope to get to 20,000 or 30,000 steps in a day, making us all feel extremely lazy. Maybe most important in his life is that he is a remarkable father to 4 extraordinary daughters, 2 of whom are here tonight, Sarah and Lily. He's fiercely protective of them. He's a wonderful all-around dad, but he's also a champion of each of them in the unique way